All right, people, we back. Victory and Vices podcast. We're in full effect. Me, Rory Spooner, James Veck, and Reece Henley, and we got all the news and all the views. Okay, so we're going to be kicking off with some transfer stuff. Transfer window is coming to a close. Big shout out again to everybody that's watched all of our transfer videos thus far. Huge interaction from Everton fans, Spurs fans, Villa fans, Man United fans, Man City fans, which segues nicely into this next little transfer part we're going to do. So Ruben Dias. Now, Ruben Dias is on his way to Manchester United. I wish Manchester United, Man City. God, I saw Becky's top then and I was thinking to myself, God, I wish Man United had a centre-back like Ruben Dias. No, Man City, I beg your pardon. So, yeah, Ruben Dias is on his way to Man City. And it seems like a good deal. I don't think he's necessarily the first choice. He seemed to be, I think it was like a fourth choice. It was behind Koulibaly. There was Jimenez of Atletico Madrid. There was Koundé at Sevilla. And then Dias is coming in fourth. So Otamendi's gone the other way. Money's been exchanged as well. Becky, I'll start off with you. What do you reckon? Is he the defender they need?
Well, for £65 million, that's got to be one of the most expensive centre-halves in world football behind probably Maguire and Van Dijk, I would imagine.
I can't think of anyone else who's actually more expensive. Is there anyone else that's higher?
It's got to be third, isn't it, I believe. Right. And I know you mentioned other names that City were interested in, quote unquote. But he would have been quite high up their list, I would assume, if they're paying £65 million for him. You wouldn't spend that much money on someone who you hadn't scouted quite in depth. Yeah. So watching their performance against Leicester, I'm sure we could all agree that they haven't addressed their defensive issues. People have mentioned about how it's going to be tough for Liverpool to win another league, and Man City are obviously the next favourites. Now, like I say, watching that game, it was another shit show for City defensively. When you're conceding 5 against Leicester, obviously Leicester aren't a bad side, but they shouldn't be conceding those goals at home. 3 of those were penalties. And you look at some of the fouls that their players are making for the penalties, it was really, really poor. So I'll be totally honest, I haven't watched a lot of Ruben Dias. He's coming from the Portuguese league again.
Yeah, Benfica, yeah.
And I'm sure we'd all agree, when you sign players from the Portuguese league, it's like a bag of rebels, as Paul Merson would say. You just don't know what you're going to get. It could be a Cristiano Ronaldo, like a Bruno Fernandes. It could be an Anderson. It could be a Renato Sanchez. You really don't know what you're going to get. So I think City are hoping that this is going to be a big upgrade on what they've got. Otamendi has obviously gone the other way, as you said. But if they can keep Laporte fit, which is a big if, because when he's fit, obviously we all know he's excellent. But if they can keep him fit, and this Ruben Dias turns out to be real quality, then they have solved a bit of a big issue. But I still think they're short defensively. Still think they're short in full-back areas.
What do you think, Reece?
Well, it's hard to say, isn't it?
Here we go now.
Is exactly what you said, James. What are you going to get? What you're going to get for £65 million, by the way, is a accomplished centre-half who has fought his way in through the Benfica youth ranks, has established himself in the team, so much so that he's representing his country at international level and starting for them. Somebody who is making a big money move and would be expected to go straight into the 11. Somebody so young that you can mould them into what you want. Are we talking about Lindelof here or Dias? Because they followed the exact same career trajectory, and you don't know if you're going to get another Lindelof. And if you do, then that is £65 million down the drain. Because I think we had a chat at the time, James. Lindelof was not a smart signing. He's not a great defender. He doesn't fit into the Premier League. He's not fast enough. He's not intelligent enough. He's not experienced enough, right? And I know obviously this is an unprovoked attack at Lindelof. But if we look at Dias as someone with the same profile, you'd have to hope that you're getting someone totally different. And for me, there's no way of knowing that. And £65 million to pluck a player out of the Portuguese league, huge gamble. But can it get worse than what it is? Eric Garcia clearly isn't up to it. I thought he might step up this season and start to show that he was worthy of a chance. But it looks like from the opening few games that he isn't. Then you've got Nathan Ake, and again, I think he's a decent player, but I think we discussed at the start of the season, he's not good enough. And then you've got Laporte, who, like we said before at the start of the season, he is injury prone. He's probably you're not going to get 38 games out of him. And so where are you? You need a player who's going to be able to play 38 games to start with. You need someone who's going to be able to slot in and, be a ready-made starting centre-half. I'm not sure that's what they've got. I really am not. And you look at the players that he'll be looking at for support. Laporte is not a hugely experienced centre-half. Yeah, okay, he's a little bit older. He's been around the block a little bit. But he's certainly not, your 29, 30-year-old centre-half that is going to run the show and look after you. What Van Dijk is to Joe Gomez, for example. He looks to his right, and he's got Kyle Walker, who isn't a defender's cousin, really. He can't defend for Toffee. We saw that on the weekend. He gave away an extremely poor penalty, and that was indicative of his defensive ability. I've seen nothing throughout his whole career that would imply to me that he's better than that. And Mendy as well. When Mendy first joined Man City, he was electric. He was brilliant, but a couple of injuries later, and he's not the same player. He needs to be gotten rid of as well. So there's certainly no cover for him. There's no one looking after him. He's going to be able to have to take the bull by the horns and hit the ground running. I'm not confident he'll do that, I'll be honest.
Yeah, they still look light, though. Do you know what's interesting you say about Mendy, Reece? Basically, Benjamin Mendy is an Instagram influencer. That's what he is. He's not. I had this conversation with you lads, and I said, with my chest, I said it very proudly as well. I said Benjamin Mendy could be the best left back of his generation, and he peaked too soon, and that's what it was.
He said the same thing about Greenwood, didn't you? So
I said he could be the best, and he peaked too soon. And if he gets injured, who comes in? Like you said, Reece, they're light. Zinchenko, not really going to look at him, are you? If they get an injury at right back, I mean, who is the City back?
Danilo's or Cancelo, which one they? Yeah.
Cancelo's not bad. I like Cancelo as a player, but I mean, they've got, what City are going to have? If they have Cancelo and they have Diaz, they essentially have a quarter of the Portuguese backline. And it's a good backline. Me and Reece were discussing it before we came on, actually. The Portuguese side is not bad. And I like Ruben Diaz. He's an upgrade on Otamendi. He's an upgrade on Stones. Is he ready for the next level? Time will tell. He deserves a chance, though. And I think we'll all agree with that. He's kind of done his time at Benfica now, and he deserves his shot. What I will say, very interesting, Becky, just before I let you come on, I read some really interesting analysis from the City game against Leicester. Now, everybody says that they have defensive deficiencies, which they do. We'll agree they're light and they're not maybe as good as they should be, and Guardiola's record at spending money is it's a little sketchy when it comes to defenders. But the analysis that they broke down in that game was that Leicester, instead of trying to beat the first press, played around it. Now, once they played around the first City press, they had loads of space in midfield because that entire City team just aren't pressing players like they used to. Now, if you look at Liverpool against Arsenal, Liverpool are absolutely ferocious in the press. They're all over you. They press in numbers, they press together, they press well. That Man City team aren't doing that anymore. So once you get past that first press, you're in behind against, not an inexperienced backline, but a backline that's not necessarily equipped to maybe win titles, and a Fernandinho who's now 87 years old. So they're absolutely running amok. And it was really interesting because Leicester laid out the blueprint of how to beat City.
Yeah, and for the first 25 minutes, when Leicester couldn't get out of their 18-yard area and City went 1-0 up, it looked like it was going to be plain sailing. But then Leicester figured them out. And the difference between City and Liverpool is that if you beat the Liverpool press, what's behind those pressing is very, very good. You look at the midfield with the Fabinho, Thiago, Wijnaldum, you've got Robertson, Trent, Van Dijk. It's night and day with what City have in their midfield and their back four.
Yeah.
What I was going to say earlier on was perhaps the reason they're signing Ruben Diaz is because they just want to stop Wolves from having all the Portuguese players. Perhaps because they've got the other half of that Portuguese squad. So one thing I think is interesting as well is that we've talked about, and not just us, everyone has talked about City's defensive frailties for quite some time now. And it's taken them this long to try and address it. Now, Manchester United, and rightly so, come up for a lot of criticism on their lack of signings and addressing the obvious problems they have. And obviously, it's gone a little bit under the radar, but Man City have had similar defensive issues. They have better quality elsewhere. But Guardiola doesn't seem to come for as much criticism as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or whatever, considering it's taken them until, was it the 28th or 29th of September to sign a defender. So I think that's a little bit rich sometimes. But, United being United, they're on the spotlight always, aren't they? But I just think Guardiola, it's quite poor that it's taken this long for them to sign someone. And I'm not even sure it's the right signing, because Koulibaly was the name being thrown about all the time. And I don't know what's happened there. But it's almost like they've got to a point where they've said, well, we need to buy someone defensively because we're that bad. And now they've thrown £65 million at Ruben Diaz.
Yeah. Do you know, we did the transfer video and it still gets lots of views. When I look through YouTube analytics, there's one Man City transfer video in particular that gets lots and lots of views. And it is the transfer video we did where we picked the two centre-halves, one for City to buy one of, Koulibaly or Jimenez. So I'm looking at that Ruben Diaz signing and I'm thinking, well, given that you're state-backed, and you don't really give a shit about financial fair play anyway. I mean, realistically, it doesn't mean anything to you. Why not just spend the extra 15 to 20 million on a Jimenez or Koulibaly? Because, like you said, there's levels to this. Diaz, he's relatively green at the top level. Jimenez, I mean, look, that guy is an absolute beast. If he ever leaves Atletico, whoever picks him up they will be in for they could have that's the kind of guy you can build a dynasty with. And I just look at it and I think, yeah, okay, Diaz, yeah, he's a solid little player. He's not great on Otamendi. But, when a player like, for example, Jimenez comes up, chuck that extra 20 million at it and go for it. Because, I mean, like they've spent, Becky, you give the comparison of United and City. The only difference I'll say is one actually buys defenders. City just buy the wrong ones, that's all. They buy the wrong defenders. It's not like United who aren't willing to spend any money. I mean, United still have Chris Smalling from 2011. City will throw the bank at it if they think it makes sense, but it's an interesting signing. And obviously, Man City fans, let us know what you think as well, because we want your opinions too. Is he the right guy? Was Nathan Ake even relevant if you signed him? Would you be better off keeping Otamendi as a third choice centre-half? Maybe, who knows? But anyway, we'll move swiftly on. Going back to Manchester United. So the shirt confused me earlier, so I'm up to speed now. That's fine. Got the correct club. All right, Fergie time, Ollie time, VAR time, winning the game after the final whistle. It don't get better than that, Becky. So tell me your opinion on it, bro. What? Because when I was out watching, I was actually in work, I tell a lie, and when the lads came up to me, he's like, they've won the game after the game. And I didn't know what they meant. And I had to go away and look. So what was your opinion on it?
Well, as you can imagine, there were several emotions that occurred within a very short space of time. And that's something that has never happened before. And VAR seems to be doing this thing where it keeps giving us drama and scenarios when we don't think we can get any more from it. It obviously... The result doesn't take anything away from the performance, right? We know United were extremely poor against Palace. They were barely any better against Brighton. And they really got away with one. They deserved a point at best. And I say at best. Brighton, they didn't take their chances. Call it unlucky, call it poor finishing, maybe a bit of both. The actual incident itself, it just... I've got to this point with VAR where I just don't want it in the game. I think we should have stopped at goal line technology. Goal line technology, like Hawkeye and things like that in cricket and tennis, is it over the line, is it not? You know what I mean? It's very yes or no. And we needed that. VAR at the moment, I know we'll come on to some of the rules after this. I washed my hands with it. I've had enough of it. I don't want it in the game. As the incident itself, was it a penalty? I believe it was. It was relatively soft. There's been much worse decisions given this weekend alone. It wasn't the clearest of penalties, but a lot of people seem to be agreeing it's a penalty. And then within the rules, then they've gone back and restarted the game as they're allowed to.
You've just completely contradicted yourself there. You've said, "Oh, I hate VAR. I've washed my hands of it," but it's made the right decision there. We wouldn't have got the pen.
But we're going to come on. Yeah. We're going to come on to the handball rule in a second.
Then would have had a penalty denied. That should have been a penalty.
Well, hang on. We're going to come on to the rule in a second, which I'm going to say it's a problem.
The rule has nothing to do with VAR.
But the rule does have something to do with VAR, and that's why it was given.
Nothing to do with VAR.
It's the rule. It's the rule that's the problem. It's just the handball rule.
Yeah, exactly. So it's got nothing to do with VAR at all.
But I'm just saying that I don't like VAR as a whole. I don't want it in there. The handball rule is a separate issue, which we'll come on to in a moment. But I'm not a fan of VAR in the game at all. But I'm just saying that if you're going to use the rule, which is in place, then it was a penalty, as per the VAR. I'm not saying I want it in there. If I would much prefer we went back to the old ways where the game just ended as it was. The referee didn't see it. He didn't see it.
Yeah, well, look, my take on what happened at United. Look, I think it's like you said. In the end, I think the right decision was made with regards to the Man United game as an isolated incident. I mean, I've heard of winning games, in the dressing room or winning games, in the dugout, but winning it when you're practically on the bus home is a new one. Now, with that decision, definitely the right one. Neil Maupay has made himself look an absolute dick. He's done the crybaby, celebration against Man United. He's done a Panenka penalty, and then he's Superman punched the ball out of the air in his own box in the last second of the game. So, dick of the week goes to Maupay for sure. And then obviously we know what happens then. Fernandez gets the pen and slots it home like, he does. Now, as for the rule, I think we'll all agree that the rule is a little bit of bullshit, and they've come up with this rule so that there can be uniform definition of handball, and then that rule is if your ball is not tucked into your body, as we've seen defenders tuck their arms in behind their back and in a lot of cases turn their back, which doesn't make any sense. But if their arms are tucked in and it hits it, then fair enough. But if their arms are away from their body and the ball makes contact, then it's a penalty, and that is the new rule. And VAR is simply there to make the decision: is the hand away from the body? Yes. Did it strike the hand? Yes. Penalty. Okay, that's all VAR can do, is follow the rules given to them by FIFA. And the moment that they stray away from those rules is when we've got a problem. I want to read you out. I don't know, guys, if you watched the game. I mean, Jamie Carragher was commentating. He said, "It's an absolute disgrace. It's a joke. Newcastle fans will be ecstatic, but everyone else in the country will say exactly what I'm thinking." He said, "Eric Dyer jumped for the ball, had no idea where his arms were going to be. He was half a yard away from him and hits him on the arm. He's got no idea what's going on. It's a joke, whether it's the Premier League, the FA, FIFA, Kalina, whoever is involved in this, stop it. You're ruining football for everybody." And maybe a little excessive from Jamie Carragher. I think he definitely saw his arse a little bit on that one. But he's right. He is right. Personally, I love it. I'm a Newcastle fan. We got a penalty, right? It was a disgrace. We should never was a penalty. But as a neutral football fan, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. But if there's 10, 15 extra goals every week, then I'm all for it. However ridiculous it is. But if you look at it from the perspective of grassroots and things like that, there's no way that gets given on a Sunday league pitch. Absolutely no way it gets given on a Sunday league pitch.
They were saying, though, that in Serie A and La Liga and all these other places, that rule has been commonplace for a while now. And I think there was a statistic last season about the amount of handball penalties or handball incidents, and people in Italy and Spain are just like, whatever, we just get on with it. But obviously the British game it just can't quite adapt to it. But I came on this podcast before, lads, and I said, again, another very bold statement, which I am inclined to do every now and then, and I said that if a ball hits your hand in the box, it's a penalty.
There's two ways, right? There was two takes.
I'm comfortable with the rule.
Yeah, there's two takes on it that were given this weekend, because at the moment there's a lot of this. Is your arm in a natural position? If it hits at a certain point of the sleeve and up it isn't, but then people are like, well, we wear long sleeves, we'll wear medium length sleeves, we'll confuse them. It's all nonsense. Gary Lineker said there's one way you can look at it, and it's either that whenever the ball hits the hand, like you said, Spooner, it's a penalty every single time, regardless of whether you think it shouldn't have been there or his arm couldn't be anywhere else, it's a penalty. Or you go down the opposite end of that, which is what Roy Hodgson said in his interview, and it was more along the lines of, if you've pretty much moved your hand to the ball to deliberately handball it, it's a penalty. But in any other instance, if the ball just hits you and there's nothing you can do about it, then it's not. And it's none of those at the moment. And yeah, it's not, VAR isn't the problem with this particular situation or this issue. It is the handball rule. But I agree with Reese. Yeah, all right, you might see 10, 15 extra goals every week, but that's not what I want to see. I want to see more goals. But it's great one week when it's your team that gets the benefit, but it's the total opposite when it goes against you. We're Man United fans, Spooner. We saw the penalty given against Lindelof. That was never a penalty. Do you know what I mean?
I also remember, though, the PSG game where Dalot got the penalty, and I was like, hey, this is life, swings and roundabouts.
People are saying, it evens itself out. I just don't think it's right for the game. And look how many incidents we had in one weekend. It's just something has got to change with that rule, and I think it will as well.
Let me play devil's advocate here, lads, right? Let's say, we proceed as normal, and we stay with the rule that if the hand is away from the body and it strikes the arm, then it's a penalty. If I was watching the Tottenham game, I was watching my United game, and in both cases, I saw the incident. I think that's a penalty. I thought the rule is that's a penalty, and I knew the ref was going to give it. And the fact that I knew that was going to happen means that there is clarity. There is clear clarity, on what the rule is. And if I'm sitting at home going, okay, I know that's a penalty. Given the rule, I know the rule has been broken and there's a penalty. There's none of this, I think the referee's got a money to top on,
Which one are you referring to there? Which incident of the penalty?
Both of them. But in both cases, they both satisfied the criteria that they were a penalty.
The Lindelof one?
No, the Harry Dyer heading into Morpay. And obviously the Eric Dyer handball as well. In both cases, definitely in the Tottenham case, you'd say, oh yeah, it's ridiculous. The new rules are ridiculous. But everyone knows where they stand now. It's unfortunate. Of course it's unfortunate. And Roy Hodgson made an interesting argument which says players are clever. Players learn how to dive. Players learn how to waste time and other dark arts. They'll just learn how to dink the ball into your arm. And there might be a conversation to be had about how can we refine this rule a little bit. But I'm all for uniformity on the handball rule. I don't think you can ever say, or put it at the referee's discretion, and say, has he deliberately handballed it? Because
I'm with you on that, Reece. Yeah.
When can you ever prove what was going through somebody's mind? If a guy's got his back turned and his arms, and his arms out there, and he knows absolutely nothing about it, it's not deliberate. But if his arm's out there, then he's stopping the ball.
What do you make of the Lindelof penalty? Do you think that was pen or no pen?
I think it's harsh, but if it satisfies the criteria, then everyone knows what to stand, don't they?
You said that there's clarity over the criteria, yet when they watch the replays, you got Guy Neville, you got all the pundits all saying there's no way on earth that's a penalty. So what you're saying is clarity. There's no clarity with that.
The English game now. This is what we discussed before. It's the English game. All these pundits are players and commentators. They're players who have played through an era.
They know the rules, though, just like me and you do.
Well, no, because these pundits played in an era where there wasn't this technology, there wasn't this way to separate things.
I'm talking Gary Neville here now, though. He's up on everything.
But realistically, these people are dinosaurs. They don't want change. Name me a pundit that's been all for VAR from the get-go. None of them. They don't like change. Okay, now there are teething problems with anything. Okay, and perhaps there is a discussion on how can we refine the rule. How and would it be then a discretionary thing at the referee? Is the player intentionally hitting the ball on the person's hand? And that's a different conversation altogether. But definitely the handball rule needed changing. They've changed it. They've said this is the rule. Everyone understands the rule, and now people are complaining again. You can't win sometimes.
Do you know, Reece, that's a very interesting argument you make. That's very interesting because people don't like change. And I came on a while back and I said, if the ball hits your hand in the box, penalty. That's what handball
don't think
is.
it's as simple as that, though.
It is a grey area now because obviously, like Reece said, what is intent, what isn't intent. Let's be honest, lads. What's an unnatural position for an arm? Because I was born, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. I can put my arm anywhere I want to put it if I can do it.
That's the change. It's not unnatural. It's just if the ball is away from the body. So if your hand is down by your side, then that is in. It's tucked in, you know. And if it hits your hand there, then what can you do about it? You can't physically put your hand inside your leg, can you? It's got to be somewhere. It's a part of your body. But if the hand is, you know, out there somewhere, then what can you do? You are essentially making your body a bigger target, and the ball can hit it. And that's the rule.
The issue I have with VAR separately is, for example, they're now asking referees to go to the pitch side monitor, which is supposed to help it. But then we're having instances now where the referee's going to the pitch side monitor and he's still reaching incorrect decisions in other people's eyes. So VAR, for me, the situation isn't changing or improving. We're still coming up with the same sort of uproar about it every single week. I don't envisage, and we're saying this teething problems and it's getting better. I just don't envisage a period in where we're going to have VAR and there's going to be, you will never have full harmony, but when most people are at peace with it. I just don't think that time ever comes.
You know, to my knowledge, I don't think there's been a VAR in just this season. So to my knowledge, there's been...
Well, the Lindelof one was one, for example.
No, that's a handball decision. That's nothing to do with VAR. VAR.
He's gone to the monitor and reached the incorrect decision.
If VAR make up their own rules and decide not to follow certain rules which are given to them as referees, then where are we? At what point can referees just implement their own rules?
I like the controversy. I like it. Yeah. You know, I live for the controversy, lads.
I think a lot more people would side with my view of it, but there's always got to be two sides of the coin. I understand what Reece is saying, I just don't agree with it.
If we are going to put VAR into the game, and definitely VAR has, you know, it will stop violent conduct that wouldn't have happened 30 years ago. Warren Barton said in the last podcast, if VAR was in, they'd have had 6 men every game because so much dark arts goes on. So if we're going to put VAR into the game, which the countries are doing, which the World Cup is doing, and English football has to stick with them, and there has to be uniformity in the rules. Every game has to be enforced the same. All the rules have to be the same, and it can't allow for emotion. And
there are some rules that are more ambiguous than others. Violent play and foul play is a bit more cut and shut than is your arm here, is it there, is it unnatural, is it not? Like goal line technology, cut and shut. Foul play, that's easier to decipher what's going on there. But I just think with handball, I just think it's near impossible to do it. So I just think I don't believe we should be looking at it. It should be the referee makes a decision of what he saw on the spot, and that should be it, just the way it used to be.
Yeah, sure, just the way it used to be. And every time a handball would be given, one person would say, not a handball, and the other bloke who supports the other team would say, definitely a handball.
But if you give fans that option now, I bet you they would say, we've seen the other side of it, we'd rather go back to what it was before.
People don't like change.
Very true, lads. Very true. Everybody let us know your opinions on it. Do you like change? Don't you like change? Handball, not handball? Unnatural position? Hashtag unnatural position. Let us know you're taking it. Oh, I love it. Right. So, all right, let's get into Liverpool and Arsenal because that was the game of the week. Look, Liverpool, like we said before, just a well-oiled machine. They are ridiculous. And FYI, that was without Thiago. Like, that was insane. Like, they are so good. Arsenal were a bit off last night. We'll come on to FPL, Aubameyang. Thank you very much for actually sandbagging me this week. Jimenez is another one. I'll get onto that later. But, yeah, Arsenal, they're looking good, though. Arsenal are very, very... They look a good bet for a top 4 finish. Ahead of Vecchi, and you're not going to like this, ahead of Manchester United, maybe. Because... I think Arsenal, they got some minerals about them now. You know, and I know obviously the Liverpool game was maybe a step too far, but with some signings, maybe Awa, they could do some things. What do you reckon?
I think they definitely need a little bit more in the midfield. I think when you look at El Neni and Xhaka, I think that's not, for me, it's not a top four partnership.
That's a Poundland midfield. That's what
it is. But then you look at Dani Ceballos, and I thought when he came onto the pitch yesterday, they had a lot more, about them in the midfield.
Oh, by the way, his pass to Lacazette, the through ball which Lacazette chipped at Alisson. Oh, what a pass.
Yeah. And on another day, Lacazette could have scored a hat-trick, but I mean, credit to the goalkeeper. He's made a couple of good saves and he's made himself big. And I think, actually, I was thinking last night about it. You saw Lacazette go through on goal. If he's going through on goal versus De Gea, is he taking that extra moment to think about it? Or is he just going for it? Alisson has made that reputation for himself. And strikers are scared of him. So, big up to the goalkeeper there. But I think Arsenal, like you said, they are a good shout for top four. There are other teams in the Premier League I think will finish above them. I think Man United will finish above them just because Man United always find a way to be there or thereabouts, even when they've been dreadful in previous years. I don't think they finished lower than about 6th or 7th. So, and Arsenal obviously have. They haven't quite got that winning mentality. But Arteta is bringing the right stuff, for sure. But then you got also like teams like Chelsea. I know obviously they didn't perform on the weekend. We'll probably come on to that in a bit. But Everton, if you were to ask me, Everton or Arsenal for top four, I'd say Everton all day long.
I agree with that.
What I would say with this is, I think it's totally foolish to be making these kind of predictions at the moment when we're week 3 in the season. We're mentioning Arsenal, maybe top 4. Reece reckons Everton could finish top 4. We made our predictions at the beginning of the season, and I don't think between us we're going to be too far wrong. We'll touch upon this in FPL in a couple of minutes' time, right? But the opening 3 weeks of the season have been a little bit all over the place. Because you go back to the first week where United got dicked on by Crystal Palace, and deservedly so. And everyone was saying how rubbish they were and how great Man City looked. And, they've played the same amount of games. They're both a week behind. Man City look well on the pace, United off it. And then you fast forward another week, and then Man City are the ones being dicked on. And then all of a sudden, Chelsea are 3-0 down to West Brom half-time. So there's just, at the moment, there's no form, really. You've got Liverpool, 3 out of 3. Everton, 3 out of 3. Leicester, 3 out of 3. The only ones there that don't surprise me are Liverpool, 3 out of 3. The other two are kind of, I'm like, okay, didn't think that was going to happen. And do I think it'll last? Probably not. I think Everton, like Reece said, rightly so, he's picked them out. They are looking strong. But as happens with every season, certain teams are going to find form. City will get better. United will probably get better. And the league will form the shape that we think it's going to take. So with the game itself, I think you've got an improved Arsenal side. Where they are, they're looking up at Liverpool as to where they want to be. And I feel like that, they have made progress. But Reece rightly pointed out that midfield of Xhaka and El Neni is far off it. They've just got rid of Torreira. They're trying to get rid of Torreira. They're looking at Partey. I can't see that one happening. Then you've got Guendouzi. Is he still there, or is he rumoured to be going as well?
He's kind of on the fence a little bit.
You just look at those 4 there: Torreira, Guendouzi, El Neni, and Xhaka. Are any of the other top 6 sides going to be taking any of those midfielders? I don't think so. And that tells you what you need to know. They're very lightweight there. And they're not going to get top 4 for me. But where did they finish last year? 9th, 10th, somewhere down there. I think they'll be a lot closer. And you could see they had moments in the game. What they did that impressed me that an Arsenal team of old wouldn't have done is they stuck in the game. When they went 1 up, they didn't deserve it. Liverpool, quickly turned that around. And then 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even a year or 2 ago, Liverpool would have put 3, 4, and 5 past Arsenal, and it took them a while to see them off. So there's a bit of resolve about Arsenal, which I think will see them better this year. But I don't think they're going to get top 4 for me. Liverpool, they just look business as usual to them, to be honest. And they're going to be. We've probably put them first or second. All of us. I know I went for them third, but. It doesn't surprise me that they're on it already.
Yeah, I think obviously a lot of our predictions would have come before the Thiago and Jota signings, but Liverpool look ridiculously good. going back to the Liverpool midfield very quickly, it started last night as Wijnaldum, Fabinho and Keita. Obviously, they have a lot of midfielders there now, and at some point I think one of them will probably be sold. I'm going to say it'll be Ox. What are you saying, lads? Do you think who would be the one that would go for you in that Liverpool midfield?
I think Wijnaldum.
Really?
No, I'd keep Wijnaldum. I think
He's the only one.
I think Wijnaldum does a huge amount for the team, and classy work as well. You watch when Robertson goes down the left, Wijnaldum always tucks in, and he's able to grab the ball off Robertson and manipulate possession and turn over the ball. So definitely does an underrated job, Wijnaldum. And you'd have to say that it's going to be extremely hard to drop any of them, and there's so much competition for places, which pushes them all to be at their very best, which is exactly what you need in a team. Fabinho automatically gets on the team sheet just because there's no one else in the team. You could maybe mention Milner, but nobody else in the team who is that kind of player. So he's straight in. That leaves 2 spots. Thiago goes straight in because he's world class. That leaves 1 spot up for grabs between Henderson, Wijnaldum and Keita, realistically, because Milner's not going to be starting anymore. I don't think Keita gets in. And I don't personally believe that they'd drop Henderson because, he's club captain and he was pre-FA Player of the Year. Personally, I'd go Wijnaldum, just for personal preference, but I do believe it'll be Henderson coming in.
Do you think Ox will be the one to go then?
Well, I agree with what Rhys just said, but I agree with what Rhys just said, but the only person that's been discussed about leaving and Klopp has actually addressed the possibility is Wijnaldum, and I think he's extremely underrated. You look at the important goals he's chipped in the Champions League against teams like Barcelona. I think he's an excellent player. But if one is going to go, I think it would be Wijnaldum. And I just had a notification come through that Thiago's tested positive for coronavirus as well. So,
wow, really? Breaking news.
From Sky Sports. So that will keep him up for another week or two, you'd imagine. So there's going to be he's going to be out of that conversation for the next couple of weeks anyway. But I don't think it should be, but I think it will be Wijnaldum, the one that goes, if any of them, and it would be Fabinho, Thiago, Henderson.
Yeah, and also on that subject, they've got a young lad in there as well, Curtis Jones, and I think he got a couple of goals for Liverpool in midweek in the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
They've got a few youngsters coming through. They've got Nico Williams, who I haven't been I haven't given him a lot of praise. I'm not his biggest advocate from what I've seen for Liverpool. He's been good for Wales. But Curtis Jones, I think he's a shining light in there. I think, he looks to be a player, and he's a central midfielder and he can do the job. And if given the chance, I think he could take it. I think he could really take it. But will he be given the chance in that midfield?
Yeah, interesting. We'll just touch upon one other game very quickly before we get into FPL. The West Brom Chelsea game, almost a big upset of the weekend. Chelsea, a little like United and some of the other teams, a bit undercooked. They're still trying to work out kind of the best formation for themselves. Like, again, they start with this really narrow side, and I always think they're best with a bit of width. And there's talk of Hudson-Odoi going. I think it would be criminal if they let Hudson-Odoi go. I think the name that's going to be on the chopping block, and I'm fairly sure it's going to be Ruben Loftus-Cheek, because I think Loftus-Cheek now is going to really struggle to get back in that side. Mount is a golden boy. Havertz, you can't spend that type of money and drop him. Kante is always going to be quality. Jorginho, will he be there next season? Maybe not. But that was an interesting game, lads. That was really, really good. Thiago Silva, as David Vujanic tried to point out on his Twitter, tried to Jimapel his way through.
Honestly, right.
Look, we discussed this earlier, and I know that your opinion was before the start of the season that Silva's finished. And obviously mine is the opposite. I think he's got a little bit to offer. I don't think Frank really knows his best 11. I think he's got Ziyech and Pulisic to come back. He's got Chilwell to come back. He's bought a new goalkeeper who's going to have to interact with his defence, the way that their teams like to play football now. Thiago Silva played his very first game in the Premier League against West Brom. And, Frank Lampard tried to shift things around. He put Werner out on the left, constantly trying to drift in central. It didn't work. Jorginho linked to Arsenal. I don't think he knows his best 11. He played Christensen and Thiago Silva, both really strong physical players, but definitely not ones you put under the box of mobile. Perhaps a Tamori or a Zuma would have been better served, maybe an Azpilicueta. You'd have to say those guys must have been on the bench just going, why aren't we playing this game? Marcos Alonso was terrible. He's been bad for 2 years. And
apparently, I don't know if you read it, Reece, Marcos Alonso I think he was subbed off at some point, according to reports, and he watched the rest of the game from the team bus. So there's already a little bit of disharmony there creeping in, which is interesting.
Now, I don't get, like all of us, I don't get everything right. But one thing I did say about this Chelsea side, or a few things I said rather, about this Chelsea side seems to be happening so far. We talked about the money they'd spent and the quality of players that they were bringing in. And I mentioned on a couple of occasions how I don't see this starting well for them because it's so difficult to sort of bed all these new signings in. Now, you look at the progress Frank made last year. Like you said, Spooner, he loves Mason Mount. He was his golden boy. I told Reece for the season, regardless of what you think of Mason Mount, you watch Frank start him every game. And at the moment, he's getting there every game. He got his goal against West Brom, I believe. There's just, you got Pulisic, you got Werner, you got Ziyech, you've got Havertz, you've got Callum Hudson-Odoi, Mount. There's too many there, and at the moment, I don't think, like Reece said, Frank doesn't know his best 11, and I don't think he even knows his best attacking players. And he's got Pulisic and Ziyech to come into that. That could create more problems than it solves, because how much is he going to sort of chop and change players then? Yeah. Werner, he's looked promising, he's looked bright, he's looked quick. He missed a big chance against West Brom. He needs that first goal, and he still hasn't got it. Havertz obviously got a hat-trick in the Cup against Barnsley, but that is Barnsley. And, I mentioned Thiago Silva. Me and Reece have totally opposite opinions on how his season may go. He made a dreadful error. I won't hang him out to dry just yet, because obviously there's a lot more games to be played. But I think Frank played him thinking, this is West Brom. West Brom have shipped 4,006 goals so far in 2 games. So, I'm pretty sure that it won't be too difficult of a game. And, he didn't have a great game. Neither did Marcos Alonso, but Chilwell will come in for Marcos Alonso and hopefully do better. I don't think Thiago Silva's right. And I think it's going to take Frank quite some time to work out which 3 of his 17 attackers is sort of going to fit best. And I don't know how long that's going to take. But you're looking at some of these players going to flop. I predict one of them at least will flop, if not 2 of them. So I think Chelsea are in a spot of bother at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think we always said, didn't we? Judge Chelsea when they've got all their players back fit. They've got 4 players that they've signed, 4 or 3 marquee signings and a goalkeeper that are going to shape their team. That's more than a third of their team that have yet to come into that starting 11. So he's a little bit hampered right now, and you would say that he probably got it wrong with his team selection, Frank Lampard, and he'll take criticism for that, no problem. But I don't believe Frank Lampard's a bad manager. I think he's a good manager, and they were 3-0 down going into the dressing room, and he must have absolutely hammered them at halftime. And they have come back and they've drawn 3-3 in a game that they didn't play well, and that is encouraging. As much as a 3-3 draw to West Brom seems catastrophic, it is match day 3. The players have had a hammering off their boss. Frank is that much closer to knowing which players can turn a game, which players can influence a game, and he's still working out his best 11. So definitely, Chelsea fans, there's no need to think that the world is ending. I think they'll still be okay. But like you said, James, it is so important that those signings come in and don't flop.
Time will reveal all, and time will be the biggest test. Obviously, we're going to keep you posted throughout. Will our opinions be subject to change? You're going to find out when we do. So, all right, let's move on to FPL then, gents, because it was a bit of a slow FPL week for 99% of us. Now, there was the 1% that did very, very well. I thought I did, well, relatively okay, considering I don't try that hard. You lads obviously will be a little more disappointed, given that you are, the Jose Mourinho and Pep Guardiola. I'll let you decide amongst each other which one is which of FPL. So, Vecchi, start us off on FPL then, bro, because I know you're the man when it comes to that. Lead the charge. What's the news?
Yeah, so obviously a recap on game week 3. I tweeted this morning mentioning how you kind of summed it up. Slow would be one word. It was a bit of a random week. Me and Reece discussed it earlier. The weekly average points total, I believe, was 43, which is one of the lowest that I have ever seen for an FPL week. And I mentioned on the Twitter page that if you look at the teams that did well, or people's sides that did well, they almost had bad players or unpopular players. I was looking at, a friend of Reese's on the pod who had the most points this week, 75, Chris Eels. You look at his
Chris
team,
as well, by the way.
Yeah, and you look at his team. I mean, Reese went, it's not that good. That team's not that good. And I mean, every once in a blue moon, you will get this week. This week will come up. You look at the players like Son, Kane, De Bruyne, Jimenez, Salah, the players that your bankers for all these points, the list goes on, and they all did nothing, really. It was the unpopular players who got the points. I promise that won't happen often. It is the Premier League. We keep saying it is game week 3, and teams and players will find their form. They will, and they will find their consistency. And maybe 5 or 6 game weeks from now, your bankers will remain your bankers. So that leads me on to sort of one kind of tip that I wanted to put out there. I don't know if Reece would agree, and that is not to panic. Don't worry, because there's going to be people now, like there always is, because there's millions that play this game, that are looking at their team, looking at the De Bruynes, looking at the maybe the Martials, looking at the Salahs, Kanes, and thinking, he's going out, he was rubbish, I'm subbing him out, I'm subbing him out. Just relax a bit, because it's bitten us all in the backs at times. That I took out at Mane in week 1, I took him up for Fernandes, and then Fernandes had a bad game, Mane had a brilliant game, and you can chop and change too many times with the big money players, and more often than not, you get it wrong. So that's something I would just say to watch out for in terms of don't make too many big decisions week after week, because as it's shown us so far, it doesn't usually go very well. You have to kind of put the faith in your big, consistent players from the years gone by that they will return that investment.
Definitely. And just with Fantasy League, just as it is in the real world, you will have weeks where you underperform and you don't know why you underperformed, and you think that you picked the right team, but things just don't go your way. The key is, you need to have more good weeks than you have bad weeks. If you go on a run of 3-4 weeks, maybe then it's time to panic. But one bad week, nobody scores. That's not necessarily indicative of the rest of the season. It's not necessarily the time to play your wild card, things like that. Maybe just like for example, look what's happened in that game week. Son, I think definitely would have got 1 or 2 goals against Newcastle, but had to go off at half time. If you've got Son, time to take him out. But the looks of it, he's got a hamstring injury. That's what I've done. But definitely you need to tinker with your players, use your transfers wisely, make sure you're still picking the players that are playing week in, week out for the moment, so that their value doesn't drop before you do end up playing that wild card.
Some sort of food for thought. I've jotted down a few points worth considering. I've got Timo Werner in my team. I haven't made my transfers yet, but he will be someone I'm looking at taking out. If you're someone who's got maybe Kai Havertz, he might be someone you want to look at taking out. They haven't had what we would consider difficult fixtures. Okay, the Liverpool game's a tough one, but the other 2 fixtures, you were kind of hoping that Werner or Havertz would have hit the ground running by now. And they're not the cheapest of players. I believe they've got Crystal Palace at home. the early kickoff. Crystal Palace look okay at the moment, so I'm strongly considering taking Werner out because I don't envisage him getting too many points. Looking at Everton, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is bagged again this week. And obviously you're looking at him and Rodriguez, but they've got what I would consider a tough game at Brighton. Obviously Brighton have looked quite sharp, so you can look at bringing them in as they are getting points, but you just don't know. If you've got City players, midfielders, Kevin De Bruyne, Sterling, I mentioned previously I would look at maybe sticking with those because your Kevin De Bruyne's, your Salah's, Mane, Sterling's, it's not often that they'll go more than 1 week without giving you a return. They're pretty consistent, and if they have one bad week, it's usually followed by 3 or 4 good weeks. So I'd say stick with your City players. If you're thinking about any City defenders, don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. It's a bad move. So I might be looking at bringing someone like perhaps a Danny Ings for a Timo Werner. You could look at a Calvert-Lewin. I think Southampton have got West Brom at home, so that's a decent fixture. And then it just comes down to your captaincy then. Like Reece said, Son is out, so you might want to switch him up. But captaincy, lads, who are we looking at for captaincy? I'm sort of looking at Aubameyang at the moment. They've got Sheffield United at home, who don't seem to be playing very well. So it might be I might give Aubameyang the old armband this weekend.
I'm going Harry Kane. Man United Spurs this weekend. If you are looking to put any Manchester United players in,
doesn't have a good record against United. You know that, don't you? Goals.
Look, with the cruise liner at the back, Maguire and Lindelof, the schoolboy, I'd have Kane as a captain all day long. So yeah, I would go Harry Kane as captain. Transfer wise, a good tip for a lot of people because I had a little look at the fixtures, trying to stay up with the lads. Wilfried Zaha. They have one hard game this month, Chelsea, Palace and Chelsea, which is, as you said, Becky is coming up. Beyond that, they've got a pretty decent fixture list. So I think Zaha will get some goals. He facilitates everything that goes through him. So I think Zaha will be a good signing. Reece James would have had an absolute bag full of assists on the weekend if Chelsea could finish. So again, I think he's a very good signing as well. Reece James is very cheap as well, actually. So Zaha and James will be my picks. I'm captaining Kane. Reece, who are you captaining?
I'll go with you, Vicky. I think Aubameyang is a shoo-in for goals against a poor Sheffield United team. But then I really wouldn't be surprised to see Werner back this weekend. So where are you?
Do you know what, though? And Spooner, it's going to happen numerous times this season. That would be FPL luck. It is a thing. Mm-hmm. And I persisted with Werner. I thought that he might get a couple at West Brom. He didn't. And if I choose to take him out this weekend, maybe I'll stick him in 1 week. I don't know, but it will just happen. If I take him out, he'll get a brace or a hat-trick against Palace. That is just how it works, sadly, and you just got to deal with it.
Yeah, you need some luck. That's the one thing you really need, is a little bit of luck. But persistence pays off as well, as you said, lads. So FPL, remember, if you're not in our league, join the league. The description the description of this video, we'll actually leave the league pin, and you can come in and join. Remember, the winner gets to come on here with us. So if you are top of the league or you're around the top of the league, tweet us, DM us on IG, let us know, interact with us. We're interested to see who's doing what. We'll end it with a question, lads. Farquad's been back in touch. Shout out to you, bro. Thank you for getting in touch again. And his question, he actually tweeted in the DM'd us on IG, I beg your pardon, 32nd minute of the West Brom game. So Farquad was thinking, you know what, I'm not liking what I'm seeing here. I need expert advice. So he did the right thing. Well done, bro. Well done. So the question, I've no doubt that Lampard will turn Chelsea around. But do you think Chelsea will still accept that he's building a team of legacy and allow him, say, a non-European finish this season in view of building a strong, lasting team of young talent? So will Lampard be given the benefit of the doubt by Roman Abramovich and the Chelsea higher-ups if he doesn't get a European finish? Or is he done for? What are we saying, lads?
Farquad, look at our video about Messi. In football, there is no room for sentiment. And if you are spending over £200 million in a transfer window and you cannot achieve 4th place, then you can't remain as a football manager. That would be a poor return. Look, I do think he will. In the 32nd minute of the game, they were what, 3-0 down, 2-0 down.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, okay, they're in trouble here. But look, they turned it around. He was able to show his skills as a man manager. He got them out there second half. They came back to 3-0. So for the record, I do think they will be able to achieve that top 4, which is, it is the goal this season, and then you build on it. Like we've said, they are missing key players. But if he can't achieve that, that's a failure. And if for Roman Abramovich, as we've seen, if their manager fails, he doesn't mind wielding the axe, fan favourite or not. So I don't think he survives a 5th or 6th place finish this season.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. History will tell us that Roman Abramovich doesn't possess much patience, and he's not really one that tends to believe in a long-term project, to put it like that. He invests a lot of money, like he has done this season. This is probably one of the biggest investments that he's put in perhaps since the Mourinho days, and he wants results. Like Reece said, there is no sentiment in football. There's no loyalty in football. Frank Lampard, of course, the fans love him. He's a hero for them. But what makes you a great player doesn't make you a great manager, and it doesn't buy you any extra time. We mentioned all the money spent. They need to be at least top 4, at least. If not, and I know it doesn't look good for them at the moment, they should be in the conversation, either title challenging or not too far away from the top 1 or 2 in terms of points. If you're to finish 3rd, and you may be only 6 to 8 points off the top, that is progress. But like Reece said, if he's outside that top 4, I don't think he survives.
I'll give you an example of what I watched the other day, lads. And we may do a reaction video to it later down the line, because I'll get you lads to watch it as well. Netflix have a documentary called The Playbook, A Coach's Rules for Life. Now, for anybody that hasn't seen it, it's outstanding. Right? It's very, very, very interesting. First episode is Doc Rivers from the LA Clippers. He's the manager. He gives his 5 rules for sort of sport and life that combine and merge. The next one is I forget her name, so apologies. I'm not anti-feminist at all. It is the ladies head coach for the women's soccer team, USA. She comes on, she gives her rules, does what she does. The third episode is Jose Mourinho. Now, that is an absolute belter of an episode, right? Now, that man loved Chelsea to the point where he hid in a laundry basket, which was locked, a padlocked laundry basket, right? During the halftime game against Bayern Munich, got taken to the kit room whilst UEFA officials were looking for him, and Roman Abramovich still sacked him because he was like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care if you're willing to hide in a laundry basket. You're gone. Roman Abramovich, like Reece said, there is no sentiment in top-level football at all. So Farquhar, to answer your question, if you don't get top 4, he's not doing anything. He's gone. We agreeing on that, lads?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We'll end it there. And anything else you want to bring up very quickly?
No.
No, we all good? All right, like and subscribe. Very important that you like the video. Goes into algorithms and we get seen amongst the best. Viewership keeps going up. IG numbers keep going up. Subscriptions keep going up. Apologies to the people that commented on the videos that we didn't get back in touch with. YouTube held them, thought they were spam. Thank you, YouTube. That's terrific. But we did have a comment and a shout out from Troops from Arsenal Fan TV as well. Troops is watching, so it's always good to know the people at the top are watching what we do. So yeah, make sure you like and subscribe. We'll be back next week. We'll have plenty more news, plenty more views, and we'll see you then, people. Take care.